as gold. The world outside was alive with laughter and clinking glasses, but inside the vehicle, there was only silence and the steady heartbeat of a man with everything, yet someone who felt utterly alone. The door swung open, and out stepped Larry, the billionaire prince, the face that graced countless magazines, yet whose soul remained invisible to those around him. He adjusted his crisp suit, inhaled deeply, and entered the restaurant, seeking comfort not in wealth, but in the embrace of friendship. Subscribe and hit like. Our powerful stories add years to your life. Join our Story Lovers Club and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? The aroma of spices and grilled delight greeted Larry like an old friend. But no welcome was warmer than the grin of Jake, the restaurant's owner and Larry's childhood confidant. Jake, still in his oil-stained apron, rushed from the kitchen, arms wide, merely knocking over a tray of steaming food in his hurry. Larry! Jake's booming voice rose above the chatter, laughter, and soft music. Without hesitation, he pulled the prince into a tight embrace, clapping him on the back as if they hadn't been separated by years and oceans. "You're back from America at last! The place just hasn't been the same without you, man." "Come, sit. Tell me everything." Larry managed a faint smile, the kind he reserved for photographs and distant admirers. But this time, his eyes had a haunted look. "Thank you, Jake," he replied, sinking into the worn leather booth. "It's good to be home." "But it's complicated." Jake's eyes narrowed in concern as he slid into the seat across from his friend. "What do you mean, complicated? You graduated top of your class. You have everything. Fortune, fame, and a world at your feet. Why aren't you smiling, Larry?" "You should be celebrating, not looking like you've lost your last dollar." Larry's lips twitched. "That's just it, Jake. Everyone sees what I have. No one sees who I am. I'm surrounded by people who want a piece of my name, my wealth, my palace." But what about the man underneath? The question hung in the air, heavy and unspoken, as Larry's gaze fixed on the happy couples dining around them. People who had no palaces, but maybe had real love. Jake leaned in, earnest and puzzled, his laughter now faded into a frown. "You can't mean you're unhappy because the world loves you, Larry. Isn't that what everyone wants? Attention? Adoration?" Larry shook his head softly. He ran a hand through his neatly arranged hair, the glint of royalty barely hidden. "Not this kind, Jake. The girls who come close, they don't see Larry the man. All they see is the billionaire prince. My cars, my title, my money, they love those things. But my heart, I could just be a golden ATM for them. No one ever asks about my fears, my dreams, my pain." A heavy sigh escaped Jake's lips. "That's deep, Larry. Real deep." He motioned for a waiter to bring drinks, then lowered his tone. "What will you do then? Kings don't get to run away from their crowns." The prince's voice dropped to a whisper, loaded with desperation and hope. "That's why I need your help, Jake. I want to experience life without the weight of my title. I'm going to disappear, at least for a while. From tomorrow, I want to work here to earn my keep. I'll deliver food, clean the floors, whatever it takes. No one must know who I am. I want to search for someone, a woman who can love me for myself, who might still see beauty in simplicity, not in gold-plated lies. Jake froze, his mouth open in astonishment. You? Prince Larry? Delivering food in the hot sun? Dodging traffic and angry customers? You can't be serious. But Larry's expression was resolute, a rare sight in a man used to getting everything his way. I've never been more serious. Help me disguise myself, Jake. I need to do this right. I need to know if true love exists for someone like me, beyond palaces and jewels. Jake finally nodded, a reluctant grin breaking through. Well, you picked the right friend. There's a brand new university nearby, Golden Hills University. My kitchen delivers to the students every day, and let me tell you, the campus is full of life and beautiful young women from every background. If you are going to test your theory, that's the place. Larry's face lit up, a spark of hope flickering in his sorrowful eyes. For the first time in a while, he felt a sense of possibility. Maybe, in this world, there was something, someone, real, waiting to be found. The sun barely crested the horizon when Larry began his transformation from prince to anonymous young man. He left behind silk shirts and designer suits, trading them for rugged jeans, a plain, faded t-shirt, and an old black baseball cap pulled low over his brow. The mirror in Jake's office barely recognized him, and he certainly didn't look like a billionaire heir. To complete the illusion, he dabbed himself with a cheap, stinging body spray Jake fished out from the bottom of an old locker. His heart pounded as Jake handed him the battered keys to a delivery bike that had seen better days. Take the back alley, and remember, your name is Daniel. Keep your head down, be polite, and act humble. The less you stand out, the better. Larry nodded gravely, feeling both dread and anticipation as he roared away from the restaurant. The world looked different from a motorbike, grittier, more honest, stripped of all the luxury he was used to. At the gates of Golden Hills University, students strolled in flocks, their laughter echoing through leafy walkways. They passed in a haze of expensive phones, sparkling jewelry, and designer bags, barely casting a glance at the delivery guy. Larry carried 2 food packs, feeling more invisible than he ever had in his life. Somehow, the anonymity was both freeing and deeply unsettling. He navigated toward the female hostel, where fate awaited him in the shape of 2 very different young women. A stark introduction to a world where kindness and cruelty could wear any face. Outside the hostel, beneath a bright awning, stood a girl whose beauty drew the eye, but whose expression could chill the summer sun. Antonia, her long silken hair like a waterfall of midnight, her skin polished and radiant, her posture radiating the self-importance of someone used to getting their way. Gleaming golden earrings brushed her cheekbones, and her shoes might have cost more than some families' monthly rent. Larry steadied himself and approached. "Excuse me, here's your food delivery," he began, voice pitched respectfully. Antonia didn't bother hiding her disgust. Her nose wrinkled, as if she couldn't bear the mere scent of him. "Who are you?" she demanded, fanning herself with a manicured hand. Larry held out the package. "From Jake's kitchen. Your order," he explained softly, not meeting her icy gaze. She inspected him up and down, as though he were a speck of dirt on the hem of her luxury skirt. "You look decent, almost handsome, but are you sure you aren't a walking trash bin? That scent, ugh!" A ripple of laughter broke out from some nearby students. Larry's cheeks burned, but he composed himself. "Sorry, Madsen." "I just did a delivery round," he said, trying to keep his dignity intact. She sneered. "Just don't touch my food with those filthy hands next time. I'll speak to the owner myself and make sure you never deliver here again." The jeers around him grew, stinging worse than any insult. Larry choked down his rising anger. Bowing his head low, he replied, "Please, Ma, this job is important to me. I promise I'll wear more perfume tomorrow." He wished desperately to reveal his true identity, to remind them that worth is not worn on the skin or in the price tag. Instead, he forced a smile, thanking her for her feedback, and turned to leave, carrying more weight than just an empty bag. This was a world where the lines between rich and poor were drawn with sharp claws, and Larry had just scratched the surface. He slipped away, his friend Jake's words echoing in his soul. At the restaurant, Jake smirked when Larry recounted the ordeal. "Welcome to real life, Your Highness," Jake chuckled. But Larry insisted. "I won't give up, Jake. I need to see this through." The next morning, Larry doubled down on self-care, showering thoroughly, dousing himself in the sweet-scented cologne Jake provided, polishing his shoes until they almost shined. He wore the same humble clothes, but walked with fresh resolve. The world would have to see him, not as a prince, but as a man worthy of respect. This time, at the university, Antonia was predictably waiting with more scorn, her barbs sharp and her gratitude non-existent. Yet Larry absorbed the blows, determined not to lose his focus. He turned to leave, mentally preparing himself to endure 1,000 more humiliations if this experiment would yield even a sliver of genuine connection. A gentle voice interrupted his retreat. "Excuse me, sir, you dropped your pen." Larry turned, startled, finding not scorn but sincerity in the eyes of a young woman with a radiant, clean charm. She wore her hair simply, her face devoid of pomp or pretense. Her name, he would soon learn, was Grace. With humble hands, she passed him the pen. "Thank you," Larry stammered, surprised by her warmth. She smiled. Are you the new delivery guy? The girls here don't treat you well, I suppose, but I appreciate what you do." Larry caught his breath. In that moment, the world seemed to slow down. No one had ever thanked him, not when he wore his crown, not when he carried food. Her words were rare jewels in a desert of indifference. "My name is Grace," she said, her eyes shining with unfeigned kindness. "And don't let anyone here tell you that your worth is measured by what you wear or what you earn. That's not the kind of riches that matter." As she left, Larry's heart soared with a new and unfamiliar feeling. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, the world still had space for sincerity. The next morning dawned with a muggy heat, promising another day of challenges. Larry stared at himself in the mirror, his baseball cap and plain clothes now a second skin, wondering when, if ever, he would truly feel ordinary. On his way to Jake's restaurant, he watched the city wake. Delivery trucks sputtered. Students migrated in packs toward the campus gates, and street vendors prepared breakfast for hurried patrons. It was a world of small, invisible struggles, so different from his old reality. At the restaurant, Jake greeted Larry with a warm slap on the back. "You survived your first week, my friend. Few princes would last even one day." Larry smiled, but exhaustion crept through him. "It's harder than I thought, Jake. People don't care who I am. I'm just the guy who carries food and sweeps floors." Jake handed him a fresh delivery list and poured 2 mugs of thick, sweet coffee. "Don't let their indifference discourage you. Everyone's busy chasing their own survival. Sometimes, kindness is the only luxury they can't afford, but it can appear when you least expect it." "You saw it with Grace, didn't you?" Larry nodded, the memory of her gentle smile sparking warmth. "She was the first person who didn't treat me like I was nothing. I still don't know why. She hardly knows me." Jake leaned forward, voice low and thoughtful. "People like Grace see with the heart, not the eyes. If you keep going, you'll discover the value of humility. And maybe the world will reveal its own hidden treasures." Recharged by Jake's encouragement, Larry loaded up his delivery bag and headed for campus, more aware now of the courage it takes to face each day without the honor of privilege. Larry's second week as Daniel brought unexpected difficulties. Rumors had begun to swirl on campus about the new delivery guy, how he spoke with unusual grace, refused bribes from other students, and sometimes seemed to carry himself with an inexplicable confidence. These whispers reached Antonia's ears, and her curiosity quickly curdled into suspicion. She eyed Larry from across the hostel lobby, her gaze sharp as a hawk. "There's something strange about him," she confided to her circle of friends one evening. "He's too articulate, too refined for a job like this." "Did you see the way he handled that rude customer yesterday?" Most delivery boys would snap. Her friends offered dismissive shrugs, but Antonia's determination was relentless. She started keeping a notebook, jotting down every odd detail. Larry's punctuality, his habit of thanking people, even the way he smiled when insulted. It wasn't arrogance, she realized. It was restraint. One night, she intercepted him by the service entrance, feigning a lost parcel. She watched him carefully as he answered politely, offering to help search. His accent betrayed no hint of the palace, but his posture and manner marked him as different. Antonia promised herself she would unravel his mystery, convinced that beneath the faded cap and casual clothes lay a secret worth exposing. She redoubled her efforts, even as Jake and Grace tried to shield Larry from her growing intrigue. The tension grew, and Larry felt eyes on him wherever he went, a reminder that anonymity and suspicion often walk hand in hand. On a quiet Thursday, Larry lingered behind at the campus gardens after a late delivery. Grace happened by, her arms full of textbooks, her steps heavy with fatigue. She paused when she saw Larry, her face instantly brightening. "Hey, Daniel," she greeted, breathing out a laugh. "You look exhausted. Is Jake working you too hard?" Larry shook his head, trying to hide the weariness in his eyes. "I'm learning a lot. It's not just the work, it's seeing how invisible you can be in a crowd." Grace sat beside him on a weather-worn bench, her tone gentle. "Everyone here feels invisible sometimes. These days, people only notice what's flashy or loud or expensive. But rest is background noise." Larry realized they shared a loneliness, born of different circumstances, but touched by the same ache. He found himself opening up to Grace, cautiously revealing small details about his dreams and fears. "I used to imagine living a life where people cared about me for my heart, not my name," he confessed. "Now I'm here, searching for that, and it's harder than I thought." Grace smiled wistfully, her gaze soft. "I think you're brave, Daniel. Most people accept their place, but you're trying to change yours by changing how you fit in the world. There's beauty in that." Their conversations became a gentle routine, each one peeling back layers of solitude and uncertainty. Larry found comfort in Grace's authenticity, and she found strength in his quiet dignity. Together, they were no longer background noise. They were the heartbeat of a friendship that neither rank nor poverty could define. Unable to contain her curiosity, Antonia decided to escalate her campaign. She hatched a plan to test Daniel's composure and perhaps force him into revealing his true self in front of the hostel's population. On a sunny afternoon, Antonia orchestrated a complicated special order for a crowded common room, purposely including subtle traps, obscure ingredients, contradictory instructions, unreasonable portions. When Larry arrived with the tray, she performed. "Daniel, did you get my order right?" she asked loudly, attracting attention as half the room looked up. "Remember, I like perfection. You seem clever, but are you clever enough?" Larry delivered the food, calm but wary. He checked items twice, apologizing for a missing sauce and promising to return with it. Antonia seized the moment. "So you can't even follow simple instructions? I'm going to talk to your manager. Maybe this job is too much for you," she mocked him, driving laughter and sneers from her circle. Larry felt humiliation burn, but remembered Jake's words and steadied himself, refusing to run or lash out. "Thank you for your feedback, ma'am," he said quietly. "I'll fix the mistake right away." Instead of breaking, Larry's composure only deepened students' curiosity. Some murmured about his patience, while others joined Antonia in derision. Grace, from across the hall, watched closely, anger rising at the injustice. That evening, as Larry prepared the missing sauce in Jake's kitchen, he wondered whether kindness was enough to survive cruelty, and whether his experiment would ever yield the connection he craved. News of Antonia's public taunting spread across campus. But for Grace, it wasn't gossip. It was a call to act. Confronting Antonia outside the hostel, Grace's voice was calm but firm. "Why do you enjoy humiliating people who seem defenseless?" Antonia smirked, unfazed. "Maybe because he's not what he seems. He's hiding something, and I intend to find out what." Grace's words cut through the air like a blade. "You don't need to know someone's secrets to treat them with respect. Maybe Daniel is hiding pain, or maybe he's hiding dignity from people who don't know how to use theirs." The argument drew an audience, and for the first time, Antonia faltered, her confidence shaken by Grace's courage. Some students nodded approval. Others avoided eye contact, silently reassessing their allegiances. Grace sought out Larry after her confrontation. "Don't let people like Antonia decide your worth. You have a good heart, Daniel, and you've shown more grace under fire than most of us ever will." Larry, still stung but grateful, felt his resolve strengthen. Grace's advocacy was a shield against the arrows of cruelty, a reminder that even in a hostile world, friendship could make him brave. Beneath the weight of suspicion and challenge, a fragile hope bloomed. Maybe, Larry thought, kindness was not just survival. It was the beginning of something real. Larry returned to Jake's kitchen that evening. The clatter of pots and pans, a strangely comforting soundtrack after the chaos of Antonia's attack. Jake watched him work, noticing the change. Larry's posture was more reserved, his eyes more thoughtful. He chopped vegetables with precise care, as though the rhythm could quell the turmoil in his heart. Jake slid a bowl of stew in front of him and leaned on the counter, voice low. "You did good today, Larry. You didn't let anger or pride take over. That's what separates the strong from the loud." Larry sighed, stirring the bowl. "It's not easy, Jake. Every time someone mocks the job, or me, I feel like it chips away at who I am. Sometimes I wonder if this experiment is just making me weaker." Jake shook his head. "No, it's making you human. You're learning not just how hard people work, but how hard they feel. Some folks are born struggling. Others choose it because they want to understand. The trick is not to lose yourself or your kindness in the fight." Larry absorbed Jake's words. "Grace defended me today. She doesn't know who I am, but she's braver than half the palace guards I've known. Jake smiled, eyes crinkling. That's the kind of loyalty you can't buy. Remember that. As Larry finished his meal, he realized humility didn't break a person. It built them, stone by stone, lesson by lesson. The harsh glare of Antonia's cruelty had shown him more about himself than years in gilded halls. And he knew, with Jake's quiet wisdom and Grace's unwavering support, he was changing for the better. The hostel seemed transformed after Grace's public stand. Larry noticed the subtle shifts. A few students greeted him with nods instead of insults. Others still looked away, wary of change. Grace herself seemed stronger, her spine straight as she challenged rumor and ridicule. She was no longer simply kind. She had claimed her space in the world, and Larry admired her for it. One night, Larry found Grace sitting on the lawn beneath yellow lamplight, papers scattered around her. He approached quietly, feeling the old fear that honesty might cost him her trust. "Grace, thank you," he said, words catching in his throat. "You could have let them laugh. You could have watched." "I don't understand why you helped," she shrugged, eyes steady. "Because someone needed to. Most people are blind to pain unless it's theirs. I know what it's like to be looked down on, Daniel. I know how hard it is when no one stands up for you." He sat beside her as moonlight filtered through the trees. "Is college hard for you?" he asked softly. Grace nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I work nights at the library, mornings tutoring first years. My father lost his job. There's no money for anything extra. Some days, I think about quitting." Larry listened, moved by her resilience. He wanted to help, but he knew he couldn't reveal himself. Not yet. Instead, he offered presence, calm, a glimpse of solidarity in silence. That night, Grace's courage gave Larry hope that the world could be kinder, if only a few hearts were willing to be brave. Lessons bloom. Antonia's humiliation, after Grace's confrontation, did nothing to lessen her interest in Daniel. If anything, it fueled an obsession. She prowled the campus for clues, scanning social media, interrogating staff for tidbits about the delivery boy who refused to crack. Her friends began to distance themselves, tired of her relentless fixation. But Antonia didn't care. She watched Larry on his rounds, noting every peculiar action. The way he handled money, the words he chose, even the way he interacted with Jake and Grace. Everything was data to her. Evidence of a mystery waiting to be unmasked. One evening, she saw Jake and Larry talking quietly, Jake occasionally lapsing into a tone that suggested more than mere camaraderie. Antonia crept closer, her phone ready to record, hoping she would catch a name, a slip, anything to confirm her theories. Jake noticed the shadows at the doorway and ushered Larry inside, away from prying eyes. Antonia grew more convinced that the truth was just beyond her grasp. She vowed not to stop until she exposed Daniel's real story to everyone. That night, the campus pulsed with rumor and speculation, but Larry remained focused. He knew the cost. if someone learned the truth. And yet, in Grace's friendship and Jake's mentorship, he found reasons to keep trying. As weeks passed, Larry grew more attuned to Grace's struggles. He noticed the tired lines beneath her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly before exams, how she sometimes skipped meals when money was short. One evening, while walking her home, he saw her hesitating near her hostel, uncertain if she could afford a tutorial book she needed. Larry wanted to help, to reach out and ease her burden. Yet he feared that exposing his identity would ruin the fragile, honest connection they'd built. Instead, he found ways to support her quietly. Extra pastries slipped into her bag from Jake's kitchen, anonymous donations to hostel funds, small acts of thoughtfulness that made her smile. Grace, though grateful, never guessed the source of these small miracles. One night, she confessed her fears to Larry. "I want so badly to succeed, Daniel, for my family. But sometimes the pressure, it feels like it's crushing me." Larry put a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone. Even when things seem hopeless, promise me you'll keep fighting. You don't have to win every day. Just don't give up on yourself." Her tears turned to laughter as she thanked him. In that moment, Larry realized that true love wasn't about saving someone from their problems. It was simply about walking beside them, never letting go. Antonia was undeterred by rebuff or rumor. She devised a new plan. She offered a small bribe to a restaurant worker, pressuring them for information about Daniel. At first, the staff resisted, loyal to Jake. But Antonia's persistence wore one down. A dishwasher, tempted by the extra cash, mentioned overhearing Jake call Daniel Larry once. Quickly corrected, but enough to send Antonia into a frenzy. Armed with the possibility of a name, she took to the internet, connecting the dots to recent stories about a missing young prince, known for his philanthropic interests and a striking resemblance. Antonia was electric with anticipation. "This is it," she whispered to herself, scrolling social media for confirmation. "If I can expose him, everyone will know I was right all along." Meanwhile, Larry and Grace took solace in the fleeting peace, unaware that the world was teetering on the edge of revelation. Jake, sensing danger, warned Larry to be careful, but it was clear that runaway secrets have a way of making themselves heard. The stage was set. Loyalty, love, and ambition gathered at the crossroads, waiting for destiny to decide which was strongest. The tension had become an unspoken undercurrent on campus. Everyone felt it, though no one could say quite why. On a chilly afternoon, as students spilled out of classes, gossip hung thicker than the mist. Antonia, practically vibrating with excitement, finally made her move. She marched into the common room, phone at the ready, and called out, "Everyone listen! Has anyone ever wondered why our delivery boy, Daniel, acts so strange? Why he talks like he grew up in a palace? I have proof. He's not just Daniel. He's Prince Larry, heir to the Montrean fortune. Gasps and incredulous laughter erupted. Grace, returning from her shift, walked in just in time to see phones lighting up with Antonia's quickly posted photos and a hastily compiled online dossier. Snippets from news about the missing prince, set beside shots of Daniel at work. All eyes landed on Larry, whose face blanched as his world tilted. For a moment, all Larry could hear was his racing pulse. Jake, in the crowd, cursed under his breath, but kept his distance. He had taught Larry all he could. Grace's eyes widened, not in anger, but in wounded shock. Her trust, forged in midnight confessions and shared plans, felt suddenly fragile. Antonia smirked, basking in her victory. "Well, Your Highness," she said, "the world deserves an explanation, don't you think?" Larry's voice was quiet, yet clear. "You're right." He took a breath, glancing at Grace, then the students gathering in tight knots. "I am Larry. I came here to see if I could be liked for myself, not my family name. I needed to know what it means to be ordinary, what it means to earn respect." The room crackled with emotion, uproar, disbelief, resentment, but also a new, uncertain respect. After the chaos faded, Larry found himself alone, outside, breathing the sharp night air. It stung, and not just from the cold. His secret had fractured the life he'd built. The cost of honesty loomed. Grace found him beneath the flickering campus lamps. "You lied to everyone," she said, voice trembling. "You lied to me." Larry swallowed. "I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, Grace, more than anyone, but I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew who I was, you'd treat me differently. Afraid I'd lose the only real friendship I ever built." Grace's anger melted into sorrow. "All this time, I defended you because I thought you understood what it means to struggle and fight for crumbs." "I do understand now," he said desperately. "Not just because I put myself here, but because you taught me what real strength is." She studied him for a long moment. "Do you think suffering is just something you can try on and take off, Larry?" He shook his head. "No, I can't know what it's like to have no way out. But I can use what I have to make the world fairer for those who don't." Grace let out a long, shaky breath. "You still have a lot to learn. But maybe everyone does." She left him with those words, neither a rejection nor a promise, but a beginning shaped by vulnerability and new truth. Lessons bloom. The news spread beyond the hostel, across campus and onto social media. Some accused Larry of deception, acting for his own amusement. Others, seeing how he never lorded his wealth, felt a grudging respect for his humility. Staff at Jake's restaurant rallied around him, sharing stories of a young man who worked hard, never complained, and cared for every coworker. Jake invited Larry and Grace to the kitchen for a late-night meal. "A king's mistake is judged harsher than a peasant's," Jake said quietly. "But a king can show how to make things right." Larry turned to Grace. "I want to use everything I learned here. There are students who can't afford food, books, rent. If I set up support, anonymously, through Jake and you, would you help?" Grace smiled, the first time since the revelation. "I'd like that." "Let's make it real and fair. Not charity, but opportunity." He faced Antonia, who lingered in the doorway. "You hurt people because you want to be seen. Maybe next time you can use your voice to help instead." To everyone's surprise, Antonia looked away, finally uncertain of herself. In those days, wounds began to close, slowly but truly. Larry issued public apologies, not for who he was, but for the hurt his secrecy caused. He listened and learned, and students who had mocked him began to see him anew. Finals approached, and the familiar stress returned, but campus felt different. Larry, no longer hiding, moved about with quiet dignity. Some students thanked him for his support of new scholarship funds. Others simply wished him well. Jake's place became a hub for community efforts. Grace, carrying the burden of her family's troubles and her own dreams, felt the pressure, but also relief. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. On a rainy evening, Larry met her at the old bench in the gardens where their friendship had taken root. "I can't fix everything for you," Larry said gently, "but I want to stand beside you, if you'll let me." Not as Prince Larry, and not just as Daniel, but myself, Grace smiled through tears. "You don't have to fix everything, Larry. Sometimes, just standing together is enough." They sat in companionable silence, knowing the world would judge, but also that compassion and courage would be their answer. Lessons bloom. Through hardship, honesty, and forgiveness, real love had taken root in a place neither of them ever expected. The academic year ended with a celebration at Jake's restaurant. The place brimmed with laughter, music, and the smell of freshly baked bread. Students who once sneered now mingled in easy camaraderie with Larry, Grace, and Jake, raising toasts to resilience, second chances, and friendship. Antonia, now quieter, approached Grace and Larry. "I was wrong about both of you. I want to do better." The past couldn't be erased, but forgiveness, like love, was a choice. Larry made an announcement. "Being a prince means nothing unless I use what I have to help others. I promise to keep learning and serving wherever I am." Grace added, "Kindness is how we crown each other." We all deserve to be seen and respected. As the party spilled into the twilight, Larry and Grace walked together into their uncertain, hopeful future. Titles didn't matter. In every ordinary act of service and every hard-won smile, they found the only kind of royalty that would ever count: compassion, courage, and the simple, faithful company of those who love you for who you are.